Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. We talk a lot on our channel about water and how important it is on our homestead and how it makes boards really slick too. So in today's video, I want to talk about when you're out looking on your property for water. Maybe you're looking for water sources like a seep or a spring and you're not quite sure if you found one. Get some pigs. Pigs will find all your water for you without being told what to do. So come along. Yeah, pig, 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 pig. So for the last month and a half, per se, we haven't gotten much rain, just trace amounts from here and there. And that shortage of rain has been very localized for us because there's been measurable amounts of rain just 20 miles away from us. So last night, my IBC tote, which I use primarily for fermenting our pig feed, was almost completely empty yesterday, but we've got, looks like we added about 7 inches to the IBC tote last night and then this morning. But during this dry spell, I've really been able to identify areas of seeps on our property that produce despite being as dry as it's been. And the pigs have been the ones that shown me. So pigs, like any animal, of course, need water for consumption, to drink. But unique to pigs, of course, since, where did you guys go? Since they don't sweat, they need to be able to access mud to cool down. And that's where this water source location comes in key. Mongo's very reluctant to come out, even though it's breeding season. I've been letting the gate open to see which boar would go take care of business, and his brother Dan stepped up to the challenge. And I think he came back and whooped up on Mongo pretty good. So he's not really feeling it. He doesn't even want to go out. He's going to hang out here and eat. But I want to show you in the boar pasture where the boys have found a specific spot to retain water for a really good wallow. And it's not where you'd expect it to be. So this location here, where the old pig shelter that the boys have outgrown, they literally outgrew it and blew the sides out of it. But they made a wallow here, not necessarily because it was a seep or a spring, but because water was coming off the shelter and just creating a wet spot. And they know, of course, to exploit that. So they just kept pushing this out with their nose, and got a nice little embankment here. So when we have a rain event, this fills up quite nicely. It'll get about a foot deep, not counting all the mud they have here. And they can spend a lot of time in that really cooling off. And of course, with West Virginia red clay, it packs in really well, even though we're way, way higher than the watershed. The watershed, the main watershed, is probably 100 feet in elevation drop down over the mountain here. So this will hold water quite nicely. Let me show you a spot over here where our piglets, our red wattles, have done the same thing. So here's another example of a great spot that was retaining a little bit of moisture, and then the red wattles decided, hey, we're just going to run with it. So they've made this wallow here. Yeah, that's about 8 inches before you hit mud. And this wasn't just all filled up from last night. This has been able to maintain water even through our dry spell. There's a seep that comes out of the hillside here, and you can kind of see some of the rocks. The rock outcropping allows that water to seep down through and come easing out. So where we have this cut face that I did with equipment a long time ago, they've been taking advantage of that and just making more and more of a bowl to retain water. So as it even fills up, it has a little bit of a spillway right here and just goes on down the hill to the main watershed. So if I wanted to, and that's actually on my plan, one of these days, next time I get an excavator rented into here, actually come in here and clean this out, build it up more, and actually make an impoundment. And that would provide a great source of water for them on this north pasture. And I could take all this overburden and even build the embankment up higher. That way the water could get deeper. So this is probably my favorite example of what they're able to do over time. So I'm in the sows. This is their main pasture on the south ridge. And so they've had several years through the rotation process to just keep building on this. So you can see where the old boat is. And yes, that's an old boat. I got that with the property 23 years ago. As they were using that as shelter when they were smaller, they'd come out, and there's a lot of water that seeps out of the hillside here because this is an old gas well site. You can see here in this shot that this was cut out like a bench, but there's a lot of mountain on the south side of this, and water just seeps out of this cut. Well, it seeps out in such a wide area that it's always been swampy. Well, when they come in and do this, they actually start channeling that water in to this small impoundment. And through the dry season, they've actually come over here and worked it. So they've broken down the edge a little bit, but usually it's the size all the way to the back end of the keel of the boat and that full of water. But this has not gone dry yet. Even in this last month and a half, this still had a little bit of water in it, so they were able to come in and cool off. So recently they've also done the same thing here. And this is a small seep area on the same bench that we were. And they've taken advantage of this wet spot, this seep, to wallow it out. And it's about 2 sows size in diameter there. And they've just been able to utilize that, again, for access to water. This one dries out before that one does. You may think, okay, that's a blessing that the pigs are finding all this water and making these impoundments. But what if I don't want an impoundment there? Doesn't it become a curse? And to that I say, absolutely. If you're going to allow pigs on a pristine piece of land that is groomed and level the way you want it, and there's a water source there somewhere and they pick up on it, then you're not going to be able to keep them from wallowing unless you build some structure around it, fence it off, or you just get them out of that area. I'll show you here in a second how their resourcefulness doesn't necessarily always help me. I hear you, big girl. I wondered where you were. The old hateful thing. Where's Lover Boy? Here he comes. So over in this pasture, which is the breeding group, Merida, she still counts as a breeding group, although she's just gotten old and crusty. There's Dan. He's obviously taking care of business. Even overeating. Gonna go for that before you eat, huh? Oh, Mr. Crusty Ears. Oh, dude, the nose on my pants. That's why I can't have anything clean around here. Dan loves, you can see how big he is, and he absolutely loves to rub up against me. And I don't mind that. I don't mind an affectionate boar, but he's got some pretty good hooks in here, and I got to watch and make sure he doesn't want to rub his face against my leg and rip me open like a zipper with one of those hooks. So over here where the farrowing barn is, I want to show you where their resiliency to find water isn't really doing me any favors. So this spot right here is my road or my trail that comes up and allows me to access the easternmost part of the South Ridge. And you can see the side-by-side under, so I would normally just travel right up through here. Well, here's a small seep over the years that they've just made bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've let it go because I can just keep crowding that side and drive on by. But when I come up here with a tractor or if I'm skidding logs, it becomes a bit of an issue. And to make matters worse, in this dry spell that we've had, this seep coming down the hill has dried up to the point they weren't able to really take advantage of it. So they went down the hill a little further in the center of my road and they created this foxhole. Yeah, so look at this. This has gone beyond speed bump. This has gone beyond pothole. This has now become tank trap. So I would have to drive right up through here to get around that. Now I can actually go around behind the tripod, but that's getting into the pasture. So this is obviously an issue. This has to be remedied. So what can I do? I can't build a structure over this because I got to drive through it. I can't put fence around it because I got to drive through it. I could come back and backfill with larger stone. So get some of our big stone out of the creek, maybe 5 or 6 good sized stone, place it in here, smooth it back over and pack it in. And that would keep them from digging this out. They can roll a stone, obviously, but they're just going to go the path of least resistance. They're not going to take all that time. Now, the problem is the seep goes that way, so they may just move 5 feet down and do it again. But I think with this snap that we've had of this dry season, I think they'll come back up to the main one, and I can get this taken care of. So what are the real benefits of this, other than the pigs making spots wherever they want? How do we, the landowner, the farmer, the homesteader, benefit from that? Well, if you think about what I've shown you here, and I'll show you on the map, we have 3 locations on our south ridge that are all fenced in currently for pig pasture. But if I was deciding to bust those up because I wanted to sort breeding groups, I had maybe some more feeders coming in that I wanted to keep them separate, then I know where my natural water pockets are. So when I come down to divide this pasture up temporarily or even permanently, I know I've got a spot here, I've got a spot 100 yards that way, and I got another spot 200 yards that way. So that it helps me understand, instead of having to transport water up these steep hills, which would be very dangerous, that I can take advantage of the natural sources that are coming right out of the mountain. And the pigs have helped me locate those. You know, with farming or homesteading, where this isn't our full-time gig for most of us, then trying to take advantage of some of these things that kind of correct themselves are what we want to try to do. Work smarter, not harder in that situation. So I've really wanted to build on these, as I mentioned back over on the North Ridge, that I could even come in with a piece of equipment, do a little bit of earthworks, minimal amounts, and create a very large impoundment that the pigs have already started for me. And that would benefit not only them, for wallow and for drink access, but since there's elevation there, I could even plumb that and provide water down into our main meadows area for our chickens and have pressurized water coming off the mountain. So my suggestion is to really embrace the permaculture principle when it comes to exploring your land. Maybe you're just acquiring your land, or you're just adding pigs and you're not quite sure how to lay out your pastures yet. Well, do a lot temporarily. Observe what's going on, and then see what the pigs tell you. They'll actually show you where the water is, where the best shade is, where they like to hang out when it's hot, where they like to hang out when it's cold. They'll kind of give you a clue as to what you can do to improve that situation and work with them instead of fighting against them. So if you're trying to locate some springs or some seep water sources on your property, get a pig. Pig will show you. Well, I pray everyone have a great week. Man, I appreciate you all watching. Y'all take care.